to innovations that will solve or reduce some of the intransigent challenges that are currently plaguing our dear continent. Secondly, I am immensely proud to be in the company of young, exceptionally talented Africans who are committed to shaping Africa into a great and enterprising continent that the whole world is waiting to rise and become the emerging economy that it has all the resources, particularly human capital, to become. The transformative power of technology in Africa and its impact on social mobility, equality, economic recovery, and growth cannot be overemphasized. It is the singular and most effective way to stem the current migration of Africa's human capital flight, thereby ensuring the future of Africa. The digital ecosystem offers Africa massive potential to spur digital skills and literacy, particularly for youth, women, and marginalized groups like persons with disabilities, children living in remote locations, and emergency situations. Therefore, creating an enabling tech ecosystem in Africa that drives new technologies will serve as a positive catalyst that provides opportunities to enhance the way Africans learn, live, and work, thereby fostering an inclusive and resilient Africa. However, this cannot happen if the youth in Africa keep looking at the government to lead the way in disrupting development and building an enabling tech ecosystem for Africa. It is obvious that most of our governments in Africa have failed this current generation, with Africa still playing catch up in the technology space. Africa needs young entrepreneurs that would provide innovative technological solutions to the myriad of problems in the continent, running away to other continents that have built a strong ecosystem that is driving development in their countries will only result in Africa missing out on the huge and limitless opportunities that technology has to offer. Kindly permit me at this point to quote Jack Ma extensively, as I give credence to the above point that young people such as yourselves must be the ones leading the change that you want to see in the continent of Africa. According to Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, I think the internet absolutely is designed for developing countries. It is the entrepreneurs that make business happen. According to Ma, where there are no infrastructure entrepreneurs, where there are no infrastructure, entrepreneurs must see it as an opportunity to build the infrastructure. Ma said he believes there exists in places like Africa the same chance to build this essential infrastructure. However, just as in China, he called on entrepreneurs to lead the charge. Ma said entrepreneurship was one of what might be called his 3 E's for digital development, with the other two being education and e-government. He further stated that at least some infrastructure, both in logistics and technology, needs to be in place for entrepreneurs to get to start. Also, budding business owners need training as well as policies that support their growth. In conclusion, I would like to say that my hope is that this summit will not be one of the many that ends with a lot of talk with little or no action after everyone has gone back to tackling their personal issues. However, I hope that it will be the start of a continuum of diverse conversations and smart goals that will make Africa the technology melting point. Furthermore, that this summit will definitely lead to Africa rising to its responsibilities so that you, our youth, who are our future, will not continue to japa to harness your potentials in other continents. Finally, I wish you a successful summit and I pray that you achieve your objectives. Thank you so much.
Emeka, if you're speaking, I think you're on mute.
Okay, so thank you very much. Sorry. Okay, so thank you very much, Osini, for the wonderful remarks, for reading the wonderful remarks from our funny creator. So we are going to move on to the next agenda right now, where Abigail Ado, the program coordinator for ADGS 3, will go through the core objectives and the program out schedule before we take our next keynote address. Thank you so much. So the next 2 minutes, Abigail, please run through it.
Thank you, Emeka. I'm going to be really very fast. I'm sure that we can all see the screen. First of all, I'd like to say thank you, everybody, for coming on this session and for helping us make this a reality. So when we were planning the ADGS Digital Governance Summit, the plan for us was to create a platform where young people can engage and have meaningful conversations, and also start those conversations around policies and shape the use of technology. We know how the world is right now when it comes to technology. We also wanted to analyze emerging trends in terms of digital innovation. We all know the whole ChatGPT, we know artificial intelligence, robotic automation, and all of that. So we wanted to make sure that we have conversations that go around this and then analyze those trends and those conversations. And not just analyzing them, to profile innovative solutions to these pressing issues that cut across the ideas that we are going to have. And then finally, our core main objective is to have a detailed post-summit report, which highlights key recommendations based on all the conversations, discussions that are going to go on during the summit, and kick off the next phase of policy and governance and be able to advise our government going forward. So basically, these are the core objectives as to why we decided to start an inaugural summit that would continue for years to come. Emeka, please could you help me go on to the next slide? Okay, so I'm not sure if I have to cover this or if yourself, Emeka, but I will gladly do it. Okay, yes. So the summit aims to facilitate conversations. I think I just said this, striking the balance between innovation and regulation, ensuring that technology is harnessed in a manner that is accountable, transparent, and beneficial to every one of us. We are all stakeholders. And the ADGS will address the importance of building digital infrastructure, enhancing cybersecurity measures, and ensuring equitable access to technology-enabled governance. So most of the conversations are going to cut across this. All our panelists, our guests, it cuts across you yourself. If you're participating and you're not on the panelist, feel free to drop the questions. You know, if you have questions or concerns around this. And if I please help me with the next slide. Okay, so just a brief one on what the session and the summit is going to cover for day one. Again, the theme is the transformative power of technology, charting a pathway for responsible innovation and realization of 2030 agenda. Currently, we are on the opening plenary. So the next session starts about 12, which we're very sorry that we're slightly behind time. It's on the relevance of data privacy in digital age. The next session is on youth entrepreneurship and the future of work. The future of work for us as young people going forward, building resilience and accountability, especially in the age of artificial intelligence. Emeka, next slide, please. And then tomorrow, we are hoping that you all come on the sessions as well and the summit. We're also going to be addressing mental health crisis, cut across work, life, personal work-life balance, everything across mental health, which has become very key in our society today. So it's going to be addressing nurturing well-being, promoting digital civility, and the impact of social media on mental health. How much hours do you spend on social media? How does that affect you mentally? We're going to be addressing all that. So prepare your questions should you have any for our panelists tomorrow. Also, bridging the digital divide in Africa, maximizing technology in boosting connectivity, digital literacy, and inclusive governance, I beg your pardon. And then leveraging technology for trade, economic integration. The idea is to be able to discuss conversations around promoting the ease of doing business and the prospect of the African continental free trade area. So yeah, this is just a brief rundown on all that we're going to be doing for day 1 and day 2. And I'm still going to do some bits of publicity. Please, tell your friends to register and come join the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abigail, for such a wonderful explanation. We're going to take the next keynote for this opening plenary now, and that will be our community champion, regional community champion for Nigeria, Fatima Bamisedu. I'll just quickly run through her profile before I introduce her for her keynote remarks. Fatima Bamisedu is the regional community champion for Nigeria, Global Shapers Community, and initiative of the World Economic Forum. He leads a network of young and inspiring individuals in 17 hubs and states under her leadership. Fatima is an ecosystem catalyst and polymath, an ex-KPMG with over 8 years plus years of experience in private sector experience. She is an international business consultant, helping indigenous businesses in the FMCG and energy sector operate at global standards and compete globally. She is an award-winning mentor, published author, and serial entrepreneur. For the next 5 minutes, which will start the next session, we will be having our community champion give an opening address, and then we go into the the first panel session for this ADGS session. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mark.
Hello, everyone, and good morning, or brink of good morning and good afternoon. Thank you all for being here and sharing this moment with us. Thank you so much, Chukwuemeka and the entire Port Harcourt team. My name is Fatima Bamisedu. I'm the regional community champion for the Global Shapers community in Nigeria, and I'll be delivering this keynote speech with so much enthusiasm that I hope that it also gets to you and we are able to collectively take that energy and drive innovation with it. Thank you. So, like Chukwuemeka said, I'm the community champion for Global Shapers community. Many of you do not know the Global Shapers community. The Global Shapers community is a network of young and inspiring individuals who are leaders in their field, business, and academia, as well as career. The community is an initiative of the World Economic Forum, and the Shapers are committed to carrying out projects in their local communities and addressing issues that range from climate change to civic engagement to education and fighting for equality, amongst many other initiatives that we carry out. The GSC also engages relevant stakeholders and serve as a bridge for intergenerational dialogue within the country. Nigeria has 17 hubs, as mentioned earlier. We are present in Port Harcourt as the host of this session. We're in Lagos, Abuja, Kano, Katsina, Uyo, Benin, Calabar, Jalingo, Ota, Enugu, and so many others. You can always find all of that information by engaging with the Port Harcourt community. Today, as we gather here at the Africa Digital Summit, we confront a reality that strikes at the very core of our existence. A world where dreams are cut short and potentials remain unrealized. Astonishingly, this alarming fate does not befall us as individuals alone, but extends the chilling grip of our vibrant, small, medium enterprises. And not just our small, vibrant enterprises, but also the future of our jobs, both in the formal and informal sector. This reality demands that our utmost attention and decisive action, collective commitment is being put together to transform the digital governance landscape of Africa. In this interconnected era, where the rapid advancement of technology has the power to reshape societies and our economies, our mission begins with acknowledging the critical importance of digital governance, the foundation upon which the transformative power of technology is harnessed for the greater good, which is what we do at the Global Shapers community and why we have already, thought about engaging you by creating this platform. It is not enough to merely recognize the pressing challenges that we face. We must also strive to confront them head on. How? By being armed with strategies, figurative thinking, persuasive arguments, critical thinking, and an undying spirit of progress in our continent, which is the energy I was talking about earlier. It is with this context that we convene here today at the Africa Digital Governance Summit, with a shared determination to carve a path towards a brighter future for Africa. And I'm not unproud of the Global Shapers community in Port Harcourt for setting this up. The focus is now on Africa. We must advocate for policies that nurture and protect our vibrant ecosystem for the public and private sector and for the lifeblood of our economy. However, our mission extends beyond the formal sector. We must also extend this to reach the millions of lives that are intricately woven into the informal sector. We're already becoming the technology melting point, driving FDI in Africa. The gaming sector is booming, the healthcare sector is booming, but we as young people and our panelists for this great summit, we have a lot of thinking to do. For this summit is going to be an opportunity for us where we can have an exchange of ideas, where we can brainstorm and come up with creative strategies that can help us achieve our mission in Africa. In the spirit of critical thinking, we must challenge the status quo and envision the future where technology advancements are not just a privilege served only to the few, but a force of empowerment and equitable progress. By doing so, we must also ensure that no one is left behind and every individual has the tools and knowledge ready to navigate the digital landscape for Africa, to ensure that our potential is released. Like I said earlier, we live in a world where many perish within the first few years. This is not just a human statistic. This is about our businesses, and this is also about our jobs. Bringing that back into this context, this journey is not to be undertaken by just one entity. It is all our collective and individual responsibility that requires collaborative effort, where the government, private sector, civil society organizations, and international partners can join forces that can redefine the narrative of digital governance in Africa. Why am I saying this? If you're listening now, it is your responsibility, not just mine, for every organization that you're working with to make sure that you're a flag bearer and leverage technology to address the pressing challenges faced by our society today. Conclusively, as we gather here today, let us seize this opportunity for this two-day summit, represented by this summit, to ensure that we engage in transformational change. Let our voices resonate with the unwavering conviction and arguments to be compelling. Let us think critically to propel us forward. As the panelists engage and share their thoughts and ideas, let us make it interactive. Let's ask thought-provoking questions so that together we can forge a future where the mortality rate of not just our lives, not just our SMEs, not just our jobs and our economy become relics of the past, and where digital governance becomes a catalyst for inclusive progress. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Fatima Bamisedon. That's coming from our regional community manager, community champion for Global Shapers Community in Nigeria. We are so happy and inspired by that amazing speech. So just so that we are not behind schedule, we are going to move straight into the first panel section that we have for today. And I'll be introducing guests that we have with us today. So please bear with me. Let me share my screen again before I continue. Okay, so you can see my screen, I believe. This is all this information is available on our program website. So if you have not checked it out, you should go check it out. So it's all there. You get to see it. Okay, so this is first panel session for ADGS 2023. Remember, I'll just set some ground rules. Please, if you can, turn on your videos because this will be a very interactive session, especially for our speakers and moderators for this panel session. And we are going to be starting immediately. My name is Chukemeka Rukoru, and I'm the creator of Global Shapers Port Hub. With me, I have Abigail Ado, the program coordinator for ADGS 2023. And for this session, we'll be having amazing moderators and panelists with us. So Global Shapers Community Port Hub is hosting this summit in partnership with hubs across Nigeria and hubs in Africa. So for today, we have the vice curator and incoming curator of Global Shapers Moreso Hub in Lesotho that will be moderating this session alongside Mr. Marvelous Ikechi. He's a software engineer with Senex Pay in Nigeria. So on this panel session today, we are focusing on navigating cybersecurity frontiers, and we have Mr. Akintunde Babatunde with us. We also have Mr. Ejitayo Ogumola. We also have with us Rhoda Nakungu. We also have with us Oluwakemi Badamosi and Mary Noya Kone. Their bios will be read, and at this point, I will be handing over to the moderators to take over and take us through that process. So someone...
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Chukemeka, for the introduction. My name is Marvelous, and I'll be co-moderating this section with Mpona. Thank you so much for the opportunity to handle this section, and I hope everyone is poured after this section. Everyone has something to go home with. Everyone becomes better. Everyone goes to shift their world and make the world a better place in their community. I will start by taking the overview of this section. So in the context of governance in the digital age, it is essential that the collection, processing, and use of personal data must comply with laws and regulations related to privacy and data protection. More so, it is essential to ensure that human rights, such as the right to privacy, freedom of expression, and access to information are respected and protected in the digital sphere. Governance in the digital era must ensure that the use of digital technologies does not infringe upon human rights privacy, and the government and organizations are held accountable for any violations. In this section, we'll discuss the risks, challenges, opportunities, and tools that can be applied to guarantee data security, privacy, and protection in digital spaces. In these sections, we'll be having the following speakers. We'll have Ejitayo Ogumola with us. We'll have Rhoda Nakungu. We'll have Miriam Moria Kone and Akintunde Babatunde. So Ejitayo is a technology and impact entrepreneur. Rhoda is a human rights advocate. Miriam is an award-winning social and tech entrepreneur, while Akintunde Babatunde is a media development professional. So I'll be handing over to Mpona to take care of the first panelist section. So Mpona, over to you.
Thank you very much, Marvelous. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I am Mpona and I'm from Lesotho. I'm the incoming creator of the Global Shapers Moreso Hub Lesotho. And I'm really excited and honored to actually be moderating the session. And I'm wait to have a great time with you guys. So moving on to the first section of our discussion, where we are going to talk about data protection regulations and governance. We'll be discussing the significance of robust data protection regulations and governance frameworks to safeguard individuals' privacy. So I'll begin the first question, and this one is directed to Rhoda Nakungu. So Rhoda, please tell me, how do data regulations and governance frameworks strike a balance between protecting privacy rights and enabling innovation and economic growth? Rhoda.
Thank you so much. Rhoda. Am I audible or?
You are audible, but there's
there is a what?
An echo.
Oh, sorry.
An echo.
Is that better?
So everyone, please mute your mic because we are having issues with Rhoda's voice.
I'll do it now, please.
Hello, Rhoda, you can go on. It's better now.
It's better now. Yes, is it better?
There is an echo from your end, brother.
An echo.
Oh yeah, so we get to hear ourselves back.
Hi, if you have another device that's connected to this session, you may need to mute that device or be away from that device. I think that's why we have that echo and that feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me first try to feel if it's better or. Let me log out.
Is it Rhoda that is having network challenges?
Hello?
Yes, I think she is.
Okay. So while we are able to sort that out, I think we can.
Yeah, I think we can move on to the next.
Yeah, if possible, should we have the time.
Okay. Akintonde, hello, how are you? Oh, sorry. Oh, Akintonde is the one who is not in the session. Is that right?
No.
Oh, Akintonde.
She should be.
Confirm that
Yeah,
all our speakers are here.
Yeah, so that's true. So
Okay.
I don't know, do we have a Tayo around? Okay. How about Rhoda? Yeah, so Rhoda, okay, cool. So I think we just had issues with Rhoda. So do we have Miriam around? Miriam, please unmute your mic if you're available. I can't hear from Miriam. How about Makintunde Babatunde?
I muted everyone's mic, so I don't know if they're having issues. They can request to. But I don't think Akintunde is on the call. I can see Tayo. I can see. I think Rhoda is still here.
Yeah.
Yes.
How about Miriam? Is Miriam here?
Okay. I don't think Miriam I think she's having network challenges. She's from Abidjan Hub. So yeah, so continue so that we are able to utilize our time. How we follow up on the speakers, know the challenges.
Oh, okay. I don't know how to go about that now. Marvelous, what do you think we should do? Do you think we should try to stick to our earlier? Rhoda, are you fine now?
Oh, we can.
Yes, I'm back. I don't know how it sounds. I don't know whether it's better.
Yeah, it's better. It's better.
Now.
Oh,
So
thank you.
you need
I'm
me
so sorry about that. Probably it was a problem with my gadget. Yeah.
Okay, no. So do you want me to repeat, or you can just continue by answering it?
Maybe I will continue, but please help and repeat the question for me about that.
Okay, so we're discussing the data protection regulations and governance. So my question was, how do data protection regulations and governance frameworks strike a balance between protecting privacy rights and enabling innovation and economic growth?
Oh, okay then. Thank you so much. So I'll start with briefly talking about data, and then why data is important in enabling innovations and economic growth. Then I'm going to talk about the right to privacy, and then I'll bring in the data protection regulations and governance frameworks. And I think that would be, I'll try to be brief because I know like we don't have a lot of time. So my understanding of data, I broke it down like a layman. My understanding of data is a set of information that may relate to various things. For instance, data may relate to, it may relate to our own personal lives. It may relate to our businesses. Data may relate to information pertaining to our families. It may relate to businesses' past interactions with other human beings. It may relate to, generally data relates to our state of well-being. Data relates to countries. So data basically relates to sets of information, different things, different sets of information. So when we talk about why data is important in our human interactions, data is important because I believe as I'm a leader actually, and I believe, or as a lawyer, I believe that your network is your net worth. So using data helps us to link with different people. It helps us to connect to different, it helps us to connect with people in different professions. It helps us in acquiring services, in delivering services, all those things. Human interactions basically revolve around the use of data. So that's why data is very important. And as data is important on the other hand, but we have to know that we have a right to privacy. We have a right to privacy as we are sharing data. Again, when data is shared, sometimes it may be, maybe should I say it can put you in a state of danger, or revealing too much about yourself might not help you as a human being, because sometimes, you know, when you reveal your location, there are things that are not supposed to be revealed. And that, I think, is the essence to the right to privacy. So the right to privacy, sorry, sometimes I'm fast, so just in case I'm so fast, please slow me down. I'm a fast speaker.
Oh, okay, please, Rod, excuse me, please just wrap up and just keep it brief. Yeah.
Okay, then.
We are out of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about the right to privacy. The right to privacy is enshrined under the Convention on Civil and Political Rights. And that convention, Article 17, provides for the right to privacy. Every person having a right to their autonomy and to non-interference in their private life. But remember, when we disclose our data to companies use our data. They might use our data maybe for businesses. And these businesses might not only benefit them, but they might also benefit us. For instance, I am a lawyer, but I also do business online. So sometimes I disclose information about the location of my shop, about the location of maybe the product, or the location of my own home because I'm doing business. So this is data which I actually give away, but at the same time, I am benefiting from it. So sometimes we might say, I don't think I'm the only one who volunteers data. As human beings, sometimes we think you have nothing to hide. Actually, that's a question that has been posed to many people. you might think you have nothing to hide. So when you are maybe subscribing to social media platforms, or you're subscribing to newsletters, you volunteer any information that they ask you about. So you might say, you might not even bother to read through the provisions of maybe the website, but they tell you, okay, just put your name and email address and maybe where you stay, and you volunteer that information. I just wanted to say as a lawyer that every human being has something to hide. It might not be a criminal record, but at the end of the day, time might come when someone wants to track you and they'll go back to that data that you've been volunteering. So that the essence of the right to privacy is to protect our lives, to protect other human beings from intruding in our private or personal space, and also to protect our lives, because your personal safety is also tantamount to your right to life. So if you're not safe in your space, then I think there will be an interference with your right to life and your right to a safe environment. So I would say your right to moves concurrently with your right to life, your right to health, because human rights depend on each other. No right exists independently of another right. So having talked about the right to privacy, now I'll go into data protection regulations and governance framework. So in order to protect your privacy, when we are dealing with companies, when we are submitting our information on social media, when we are dealing with businesses, maybe that do business online, how does the law ensure that our right to privacy is protected? So the law put in place data protection. We have data protection regulations. These regulations were adopted in 2018. They mainly apply in European countries, but because most of the companies that require this information, most of them are based in Europe. Most of them are not in third world countries, or the third world countries are signatories, or some of them are branches to companies in Europe. So that's why it's important to have these regulations, to discuss these regulations in this summit. So what do these regulations entail exactly? These regulations entail, there are different regulations, but I have broken them down into different principles, what the principles are, just to save time. So
thank you so much. I think we'll come back to you since we're running a lot of out of time. We'll come back to you and then you will just thank you so much for the insights. Now moving on to I just like how you broke down how you simplified the definition of data to us, and please keep those points next to you because we'll be coming back to you. So now I am going to the next speaker, Akitonde. So Akitonde, how do data protection regulations and governance frameworks differ across different regions or countries?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
All right. I apologize for joining very late. And I was also going to put on my video, but my internet is acting up. So I'd rather let me try to see if I'm okay. But yeah, I think I can. Hang on. Yes, so I'll just go to that process. I think that data protection regulations are first to say congratulations to the global shapers, and thanks for inviting me. But I'll jump straight to the answer to the question, which is how do data protection regulations and governance frameworks differ across regions or countries. I like to say that data regulation, protection, and internet governance framework sometimes, is a reflection of the quality of the laws and, in countries. So when you see countries that are developed, like the countries we call developed country, they pay very rapt attention to data privacy, and so their data governance framework is always strong. And then when you look at countries that are struggling, and I mean countries that are, I don't want to say third world countries, you would notice that data privacy, or generally countries like that, don't have boundaries, most times in plain terms. And and I think the variations differs. So you have legislative variations. We could be, you have different regions that have the same legal frameworks. For instance, in the European Union, in Europe, for instance, they have a general data protection regulation principles that is clear, about how you can process or transfer personal data within and outside the EU. That is clear in that context. And I think EU by far have the most interesting data protection framework globally. And I just really mention what's happened with generative AI and the context conversation around ChatGPT, when you would say that the first country that sued OpenAI would be Italy, isn't it? And that tells you, and one of the questions or one of the arguments would be that they said that ChatGPT violated some of the rights, privacy rights. That tells you how very important that kind of data governance framework is in Europe, right? In the United States, for instance, I think their data privacy or their data protection strategy is more sectoral, right? It's more sectoral. It's pretty much more about sectors. In the US, for instance, you have specific laws that clearly, tells you how data can be processed in the healthcare sector, in the financial sector, and other in countries like Brazil, right? You get to see Brazil, Japan, and other countries. You have to see them have their own data protection laws. In African countries, Nigeria recently signed the law on data governance and data privacy and all. And that tells you that conversation is getting to this part of the world. Then we also have some variations or some conversation around data transfer. In Nigeria, for instance, sometimes maybe people will get loan from this new microfinance bank. You just wake up one day on your WhatsApp and you get to see they would say that XYZ persons have incurred a loan, and that with their pictures, and I'm like, wait, this is pure infringement of people's privacy. For instance, why would anyone have access? So how would you say because someone is getting a loan, then you have access to all their contacts? That is clear breach of privacy. Let me share an interesting experience. When I was in England studying, in graduate school, I remember, I think I wanted to apply for an internship somewhere, and so I applied. And so a few days later, I got an email from the guys I applied to say that they mistakenly copied one extra person who was not supposed to view my credentials, and they were apologizing to me. I found that shocking. I mean, I found that shocking. Like, wait, like you mistakenly copied one extra person and you're apologizing to me. I didn't even know. Didn't even know, I mean, come to Nigeria where, you apply and then people will just print your CV and people sell akara. That is how, so you look at that process and you are like, yeah, this is really interesting. So I'm making this point on data transfer and how it differs per country. Let me look at social media regulation. If you are in Nigeria and someone reports you on Twitter, for instance, you hardly would not know. You just get your account, you just see that your account is restricted. But if you are in Germany or in some part of Europe, they will let you know the location or the jurisdiction where the reporting is happening from. And that's a very interesting point, we have to pay attention to when we talk of data transfer restrictions, right? Some countries, for instance, they prohibit transfers of data across countries. Before you can forward email, for instance, from Nigeria to Ghana, you need to have clear laws, right? But that was why I mentioned when I was starting that it's really interesting how people, where any country or any institution with no clear boundary, and I say boundaries very loosely, I'm not looking at laws now, I'm talking about boundaries. And I'm just going to look at some other point that I want to mention about cultural, attitude of our people. In Nigeria, you can stand somewhere and you will see someone walking towards you and even trying to, like, they want to enter your nose without saying, excuse me. And you're like, wait, there should be boundary. Like, why would you want, especially in airports, people are on queue, you just people come around to you. So, I mean, it's really interesting. I was somewhere in an African country, and I was having a chat with a friend, and I said, you know what? We were in a public bus. I met this guy who's a Nigerian, but it's not, I mean, not in Nigeria, but we met outside, an East African country. We're in a public bus. This guy was sitting behind me. Of course, we saw ourselves earlier, and we said, hi. So we got back into the bus, and I was looking at something on my Twitter feed. You know, this guy from behind tapped me and said, let me see that video. I was shocked. like you are people from behind. Like, that's cultural, I believe. People just believe that they can intrude into your privacy, and that attitude, is already getting into every part of our national life. So I like to say that countries that are developed economically and that are advanced, they tend to have stronger laws and very clear-cut policies and framework on data governance. And I like to say, that because of that, in our country here in Nigeria, you get to see that even when people are signing up for a new program, a new software, or they're trying to sign up for something, people don't read the text because people are just scrolling through accept. Right? Because we don't pay attention to that. And that also reflects in the way we do our stuff. Then I'm just gonna put on the last point before I move on, would be the fact that I think that the fact that we have new conversations on generative AI, that is now disrupting the entire ecosystem. I like to think that we now have emerging regulations, and now we have conversations that actually look at, okay, can we think of how this? I mean, if you look at when I think the co-founder of OpenAI was at the US Congress recently, a few weeks ago, where the head of the investigation said that he played an audio recording of how generative AI, captured his voice, almost unable to distinguish if it was his original voice or not his original voice. And I think that conversation around generative AI is now giving us an opportunity to rethink and start having conversations on how we can, develop frameworks, legal frameworks, policy frameworks that would guide, data protection regulations and governance frameworks, in our country, in countries across the world. I'll use the mic now. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was very insightful. And I really like how you also shared your personal experiences. And it is very interesting how you shared about how other people, in different countries don't care about invading your privacy, while others, have some regulations and law. So thank you very much for that. And now we'll be moving on to, before we move on, thank you so much, brother. I saw that you are, for the points that you have shared with us. Thank you so much for that. And I apologize, sorry for cutting you earlier. Thank you so much. And then now we are moving to our another speaker. So Eyitayo. So you'll be speaking after this. So the question we'll be discussing is, how can data ethics be integrated into education and training of professionals working with data, such as data scientists and policymakers?
Is that mine? Sorry, is that question mine?
Yes, the question is your.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a beautiful afternoon here, everybody. Thanks for having me. I know we're really pressed with time, so I'm just quickly going to highlight a few points on how I think that we can begin to talk about data ethics and how we can integrate it into education training. By the way, I'm an educator, so I think that some of the things I am going to be advocating for are also things that I have executed in some ways. The first thing is, while we are building new professionals in the data science space, data analysts, HR analysts and whatever, we need to inculcate, data ethics into the curriculum. And this goes to all the, private institutions, academics, universities and all the establishments that kind of like churn out and train, data analysts in the ecosystem. So it's high time we revamped, our curriculum to start to think about, data ethics. The second point I want to quickly talk about is we need to review the ethic frameworks. And I don't want to really talk a lot about that because, this is a subject of culture. Just like the previous speakers has highlighted. But tech professionals, we need to understand that there's an existing ethical frameworks and guidelines. It's something to have an existing guidelines, another thing to be very intentional about, knowing what that ethical guideline is. So one of the things we need to do is to rally everybody around to start to review, what the policies are. Maybe you are in Europe or you're in Africa. We have, ethical guidelines. The problem is, we don't spend a lot of time to kind of like review those ethical guidelines. I think another very great way to begin to talk about data ethics is to look at the consequences of not adhering to data ethics. And we can do that using, data business cases. One of the things that Lagos State government has really done well is to sponsor hackathons, because with hackathons, you can begin to, activate people's minds to think about building solutions that solve certain problems. But it's not enough to just churn out, products and churn out solutions. We need to know the consequences of the product that we're building. And just for example, we're looking at ChatGPT, which is a very popular AI, solution out there. But then there are so many incorrect, products of ChatGPT conversations. And we need to know that there are consequences, to some of the things that we're doing. And one of the best ways to, enact, these consequences in our minds is to kind of like use, case studies, business cases to kind of like look at all these things. Another way that I think is super important is not just to have the laws, but to create programmatic, intervention for people who know the law and people who do not know those policies to see how can we, rally around some of those policies as an ecosystem and build projects out of them. From the primary education to secondary education, people need to know that your data, is out there. But how can you as an individual, protect this data? That's not just about teaching. That's about building mini and minor projects that can help people to learn how to, keep their data to themselves, how to delete data, how to go, mute on social media and what have you. Then education around bias and fairness. I think we're going to consistently be biased because the world is not fair. But bias against some certain people, those certain people need to know that these are the certain guides or these are the certain steps that they can take, to protect themselves. Look at the Black community, right? I think that as long as we have, people who are not Blacks that are training data models, there would always be bias and unfairness, against the other, set of individuals. But we need to know as a group of people what to do. Transparency, accountability, that's supposed to be the work of the government and also the law enforcement. We're in Nigeria, we know how the police actually interact with people and then seize their phones and just, hack into their phones without their consent. All these conversations need to go from top to bottom. We need to get people to know that people don't recover from data hacks when it happens. And sometimes people take their lives, when their data have been hacked. And we need to have these conversations from curriculum, to building projects, to building hackathons and rallying the entire ecosystem around that. I would stop here because I know we're quite very pressed with time here.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. And I really like how you are sharing your personal experiences also. Like, it's really great and how you you highlighted the point that we don't really have time to review the ethics. But then thank you so much for that. And now we have under this section the last question, which is going to Miriam. So Miriam, please share with us, how have recent data breaches and privacy scandals highlighted the need for robust data protection regulations and governance frameworks? Hello, Miriam, are you there?
Hi, is it me?
Yeah, it is you.
Okay,
Hello?
I'm not used to people calling me Miriam. They usually call me Nuria. No worries. Can you come up again with the question, please?
Okay, the question was, how have recent data breaches and privacy scandals highlighted the need for robust data protection regulations and governance frameworks?
Wow, that's a tough ass question, and I am not an expert in the field. Let me be honest. Yes, I'm a software engineer. Yes, I do a bit of cybersecurity, but I don't think I'm fit enough to respond to that question.
Okay. Let me say, let's just take the other part of the question is, what are the key elements of robust data protection regulations that effectively safeguard individuals' privacy rights?
Okay, I think I got it. I will try to respond at the best of my ability. So, quick introduction. My name is Mariam Kone. I'm the incoming curator of the Global Shapers Abidjan Hub in Cote d'Ivoire. And I'm a software engineer. I am passionate about technology and women inclusion. Apologies for joining in late. Time difference made it a bit tricky. And yeah, I only joined when I received the message from Chukwuemeka.
Oh.
So in terms of, I believe what needs to be done for us to have, I believe, strong data policies, and I believe it's a range. There are so many things that needs to be done. I remember recently we were having that discussion about how much, like, what's the data policy, how many data policies we have in Africa, and I believe the numbers were like 8%. Only 8% of Africa actually has data policies.
Wow.
Yes, most of them are very light, not very clear. In my country, for example, we don't really have a general data protection regulation. It's something that's still very new, and definitely those who are writing those policies don't always have the skills I mean, if you're going to be writing a policy, when it comes to something, you need to be able to understand it through in and throughout. So, I mean, we don't need to discuss how significant it is to have privacy and data protections as fundamental human rights, and how they're very relevant in the digital sphere. Sorry. In terms of legal framework and regulations, I believe it's important to highlight we need robust laws and regulation that govern the collection, processing, and use of our personal data. I believe in most of our countries, we probably have to fill a couple of forms, sometimes, and we never know what people are doing with our data. What's happening with our data when we go to the hospital? My personal doctor was telling me about how he refuses his hospital system to be connected to the government's health system, because he knows that they are taking the data to do whatever. It's not clear. Nowhere it's written that, okay, we will be keeping your data for so and so. This is how we'll be using your data. This is the GDPR that we are following. And I believe in that sense, we can take inspiration from the General Data Protection Regulation from the European Union as an example of a comprehensive privacy and data framework. And I also believe it's the load of the government to enforce such regulations, to make sure that we are compliant and accountable. But when you look at how corruption is very rampant in most of our countries, definitely, I have a feeling it will be tricky to have it implemented. And it's also important to look at the aspect of how cybersecurity is evolving. It's science. It's evolves every day. Today we have this, tomorrow we have something else. Right now we're very exposed when it comes to large language models that are being, created. We don't have access to the code. We don't know how the models are looking like. We're not really sure where they're sourcing the data. I remember reading about the Times article about the data farms. I think it was the Time of Rice article about the data farms in Kenya. We see what's happening behind to make this amazing tool be amazing. There's definitely a lot to say there. I'm not sure what was said before because I joined a bit late. I don't want to be re-saying again what has already been said, but when I take up West Africa, Francophone West Africa, the past couple of years, I believe there were many data breaches from banks, hacking, unauthorized access to personal information. Obviously, it's not making the big news, but banks were hacked so many times. They lost so much money. But obviously, if you say that you lost so much money, means you're not reliable. Why should we be going there? And one thing that I also want to mention is while we're going through this whole process of building legal frameworks and regulations, it's important to balance privacy and freedom of expression because the limit can be very thin. You know, where does data protection, data privacy stops, and where does freedom of expression starts? There's a delicate balance between privacy and freedom of expression, and both rights in the digital sphere as well. And for me, one thing is, as young people, is that we have to be accountable for what we're doing, and we also have to make sure we are making our leaders accountable. This is our responsibility, this is our voice. I believe we also don't have the right to complain when we're not doing anything to make the change happen. And okay, I'm gonna go fast. Okay, sorry. I know I'm talking a lot because those things are very infuriating and there's a lot of passion behind. So for me, it's really important to have clear consent mechanism, notifications, for example, when it comes to data breaches and regular audits to ensure that we are accountable and that we're building trust and that every time that those such policies are supposed to be written, we need to be at the forefront of everything that's happening. As young people, we need to be together and speak with one voice because that's when we have more power. Thank you.
I like that. As young people, we need to do things together and be one voice. I like that. Thank you so much, Miriam. So before Marvelous takes over, we have good news, guys. So the team here has a video for us for a little entertainment, with the long sessions we can get bored. So we have a little entertainment for us. So thank you. Take it over, team.
Okay, just hold on a little. That is okay, please just hold on. Are you on it? Africa Digital. In a world of digital transformation, where technology is intertwined with governance, here comes an amazing event, the Africa Digital Governance Summit. Africa Digital Governance Summit is a program hosted by Global Shepherds Hub in collaboration with Global Shepherds Hubs in Nigeria and the African region.
Are you ready to embrace the future, shape policies, and revolutionize governance in the digital age? The Africa Digital Governance Summit is here to empower and unite leaders, change makers, and innovators from across the continent.
This groundbreaking summit is an unparalleled platform where minds converge, ideas are ignited, strategies are forged from bustling metropolis to rural communities. This event serves as a catalyst for progress throughout Africa.
The Africa Digital Governance Summit aims to accomplish 3 crucial roles. The first is to foster a deep understanding of digital governance and how technology intersects with the diverse needs and challenges faced by nations and communities.
This summit is a call to action, propelling participants to collaborate, share insights, and create actionable solutions that can shape the digital landscape of Africa. Together, we can pave the way for inclusive, transparent, and accountable government.
The importance of attending this summit cannot be overstated. It offers a unique opportunity to engage with high-level decision makers, industry experts, and thought leaders who are shaping the digital governance landscape.
Whether you're a policymaker, a tech enthusiast, an entrepreneur, or social advocate, attending the Africa Digital Governance Summit will equip you with the knowledge, connections, and inspiration needed to drive change within your sphere of influence.
So mark your calendars and join us at the Africa Digital Governance Summit, where Africa's digital future unfolds. Together we'll build a more connected, inclusive, and prosperous continent.
Visit ADGS.netlify.app for more information to secure your place at this transformative event. See you there.
Okay.
Thank you. Over to you again.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. And we're seeing reasons to, or we've been enjoying the section so far. And we are getting inspired on how to protect our data and how to demand for change and how our data is used in our various communities. So in the next section, which I'll be handling, we'll be talking about emerging technologies and privacy challenges, examining the privacy implications of emerging technologies, such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and facial recognition. So I'll be directing this question to Ruther. So we all know about the influx of AI and different softwares utilizing artificial intelligence and how it's a growing industry in our world today. But we also have something to deal with. I mean, because of the emergence of these technologies, we have to deal with also the protection of user data. So I want to ask you, Ruther, how can we strike a balance between promoting innovation and protecting individuals' privacy rights in the context of emerging technologies, and how do they differ from traditional technologies? So over to you, Ruther.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think that it also runs back to the principles of data protection, that first of all, the duty to protect data rests on the processors of the data. So that runs to the companies to make sure that, or the business owners to make sure that when they are receiving the information, it's lawfully received, it's received for a lawful purpose, and that it's processed for the purpose for which it is received. And after processing it, if they are not using it anymore, then it is considered to them to delete the data, and also to make sure that their systems are safe, that Okay, sorry. So to make sure that their systems are safe, that when the data is being stored in their databases, that no one is going to hack into the information, no third party is going to hack into the information and then maybe divulge the data of clients. And then also, on the other hand, I think also there is a duty on the person who is revealing, you as the subject who is revealing your information, to know what to reveal and not to reveal. Just like I was saying, sometimes we think we have nothing to lose by disclosing maybe our locations and all that, but we have everything to lose, because at the end of the day, I realize that even when employers are employing, sometimes they go to even social media platforms and they look for what you've disclosed. And then sometimes, for instance, the modern day technology, sorry for that part of the questions, the emerging technology is different from the old technology because we have new applications. For instance, now I can be talking on my phone and maybe I talk about something and all of a sudden you see an advert popping up about what I'm talking about. So the emerging technologies, the difference between the emerging technologies and the old technology is that the emerging technology has the capacity to accumulate a lot of information at a particular time. And then at the same time is that the information moves at a very fast pace as compared to the past technology, whereby I'll do something in Uganda. Now I'm in Kampala, but I can talk to people from all over Africa. So that's the difference between the old technology. It was hard to reach out to people. Sometimes it would even take time. Calls were not really clear and all that. So I think the difference between the new and the old technology is the volume of data it uses. So we are forced to disclose more than we should have disclosed in the old technology. And then data moves so fast. So the difference is, I think it rests on the data processors. Number one, to comply with all the regulations. Make sure you receive particular information when you're not using it anymore. Delete it. When when you are receiving it, receive it for lawful purposes, and also have integrity. Train your employees. Train your employees to make sure that they know how to handle databases and people's information. And then on the consumers or on people who share their information, make sure that you know what to share. Don't share everything. If there is an option for you not to share, for instance, your marital status, or for you to share not to share your location, do not share unless it is essential. And then finally, the issue of consent. Sometimes, not even sometimes, all of us are victims to this, in that we don't read policies. When we are accepting cookies, you just accept because you want to go and search for something. But I think it's important for you to read through the company policies before you volunteer your information online. So I think when we get to know the duty of the data processors and the duty of us, the consumers, or the people who volunteer our information, then in such a way we are able to strike a balance. They'll be able to go on with their work, but at the same time, our right to privacy will not be interfered with. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rhoda. I mean, you highlighted very, very important points. One of the key takeaways I took is, in our world of social media now, I mean, and lots of technology that gives us access or gives people access to our lives, it could be, sometimes we don't think about it, we let out just so much, right? It's very important for us to take note of that and give as much as we want to let out, right? And you also pointed out something that personally I think I overlook. You pointed out how that when filling forms, we should always only give the information that are necessary, right? So for example, you mentioned marital status. I mean, if it isn't necessary for the form to go through, I don't think I should be providing them a marital status. And yeah, that is one very key point, and that stood out for me, and I'll be paying attention to that going forward. So I'll be taking the next question now, and this will be directed to Miriam, or sorry, she said she's not used to being called Miriam. I think you said you're used to being called Noria. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Please help me out. So we're asking you, so what are some potential risks and vulnerabilities? So you mentioned you're a software engineer and you have some experience in cybersecurity. So I would like to know from your experience, what are some potential risks and vulnerabilities associated with the risk of AI, right, and IoT that could compromise individuals' privacy? And how can these risks be mitigated? So what are the risks of and vulnerabilities associated with using AI, Internet of Things, and all the risks that could compromise individuals' privacy, and how can we mitigate this risk as users of these emerging technologies or these technologies? So that would be the Getanoia, Miriam. Is she there?
Yes, I am here. I just muted because of the background noise. As I'm in a public space.
Okay.
Well, there are many, many. Okay, I don't think we'll get out of here if I have to cite each and every one of them, but I will try. The first one would be bias and discrimination, because AI systems can inadvertently perpetuate biases present in the data used for training, leading to discriminatory outcomes. We've already seen many cases of that very early on, even before the popularization of large language models, such as ChatGPT, where, for example, AI recognition tools, face recognition tools would not be able to properly identify Black people's faces. And right now, I just came out of the Global Shapers Summit, and every time we were taking pictures together with an iPhone, and obviously because there are a lot of white people around me, and I stated it to my shapers, I'm like, guys, every time we're taking the picture and I'm in it, my face is like a black point, because it does not catch up properly with my skin tone and doesn't balance it out properly. And this is just, one very obvious example of how that looks like. And there's also the fact that organizations must ensure diversity and representativeness in the data used to train AI models. So that goes back to, if you're going to be feeding data into an AI, how do you make sure that you have enough information from every kind of source? Let's say you gathering data for facial recognition. Let's make sure you have enough faces from every kind of ethnicity, from every kind of people from all over the world, just to make sure that they are inclusive of all those groups. We don't want to be seeing those real life biases, when some people will say, okay, all Africans look alike, all Black people look alike, all Asians are Chinese, really those biases that are into real life that could be, transported back into AI and are definitely. One of the other potential risk would be privacy and data protection, because AI systems often require access to vast amounts of personal data. It's definitely raising concerns around privacy and data protection, because who agreed to give the data? When did you agree to give those data? For how long will they be stored? Do I have the power to decide whenever I want my data to be pulled out of an AI? And in that same directions, I believe organizations should implement privacy enhancing technologies such as anonymization and differential privacy. I believe it's still possible to use those tools by anonymizing the data, and that definitely helps with minimizing the risk of data breaches and unauthorized access. And another one that I also want to mention is the lack of transparency and explainability, because many AI algorithms operate as black boxes. I'm not sure many people have had access to, let's say, ChatGPT's deep down code. Like, what is the code that produces that AI? What are the models that are behind? It's making it difficult to understand the decision-making process. As a software engineer, what kind of power you have when you're like creating or building a software. And this is a huge kind of software that's definitely influences many people's life, So it's also important to think about interpretable AI models and invest into research to enhance transparency and explainability. No AI should be some kind of black box. Oh, apologies. I thought I had my camera on, but I had the thing on. Data privacy, because I don't want to be recorded anytime and anyhow. I always have the thing back on, and yeah, if you see me, you see me. And there are also a lot of things such as, okay, I'm just going to list it very quickly so I don't take all the time. There are also security vulnerabilities. AI system can be targeted by malicious actors to expose vulnerabilities and cause significant harm. There's also unemployment and workforce displacement, which I mean, I believe when some jobs disappear, new jobs are created. So it's also up to us to adapt and make sure that we are using AI purposefully. And there's also, again, AI, ethical decision-making, accountability and liability. And I think that's a topic that's already on the table. Who has the intellectual property of anything generated by an AI? Those images, obviously, they were inspired by content that's already out there. What's the responsibility? What are the liabilities of AI-generated outcomes? So yeah, there are a lot of things, but I believe we can target those to ethical AI frameworks, robust data governance, explainable AI, human oversight and control, because at the end of the day, I truly believe AI is nothing else but a tool for us to improve our productivity, improve our research, basically a tool for improvement, making it easier for us. But human oversight and control is absolutely needed. We need continuous monitoring and evaluation. We need collaboration and transparency. We need to encourage collaboration between researchers, practitioners, policymakers, and stakeholders to collectively address the challenges associated with AI, because every one of those stakeholders is also part of it, or at least has a stake in it. We also need a lot, and I'm going to put an emphasis on that, education and public awareness. We need to promote public awareness and education about AI, its capabilities, and all of the risks that are around that. We need to empower individuals to make informed decisions and advocate for responsible AI. So I'll leave you with one last example. And a couple of months ago, I was invited on a panel on basically AI, the danger of AI, the risk of AI. And I believe the panel was a really nice one. And at the end of the panel, guess what? One of the participants raised his hand and asked us, "Oh, this is really nice. This is really cool. It sounds interesting. But I wish you had started by saying what's an AI." And someone else raised his hand to be like, "Yes, you should have started by explaining." And believe, and I was in my mind, I thought, how can you take your time, take a shower, eat, take a transport, public or private, and you get to an event, but you don't even think about making research on whatever it is that you've been listening to. And it's at the end of the panel that you're wondering what's an artificial intelligence. So education is very important. And as a global shaper, we try to raise awareness around that. And also with my initiative, Hakili, that has the purpose of equipping African youth with the tech skills that they need to develop the continent. We believe this is very important. The education gap is huge. Usually when we are in our own bubble as, tech people, we forget that the world is out there and some of these things are not accessible to them. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that extensive explanation. It was educative. So you educated us very well. And yeah, thank you for that. I mean, the importance of collaboration and education cannot be overemphasized, right? So just like you mentioned, the guy at the end of the section that was asking you, I mean, you can't blame him because he's not educated well enough, right? So yeah, we just have to run along, and we'll be talking to Oluwakemi. Okay, she's not in this section, sorry. So I'll be jumping over to Eyitayo. By the way, I hope you all have been enjoying the section so far. I hope you are getting educated. I mean, I hope you're learning a lot, and you're getting charged and getting so much to go out there and make the world a better place from our immediate communities. So I want to ask Itayo about transparency. So how can transparency and explainability be achieved in the algorithms and decision-making process of emerging technologies to ensure individuals have a clear understanding of how their data is being used? I think this is so packed. So I hope he dissects it into smaller pieces for us to chew and ruminate on.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you do a mic check? Can you hear me well?
Loud and clear.
I think fundamentally the question is around how can we be more transparent about the process that gives birth to some of the results that we see in the AI space. So when you go on ChatGPT and then you type something and you see the outcome, how do we know? How do we become more transparent? And how do we also explain to people, especially people that we're using their data, how we are getting this kind of outcome? And not just ChatGPT. There's so much data product around us. The WhatsApp that we're using, the Zoom that we're using is probably going to use everybody's data, everybody's, facial information to do some sort of like whatever they want to do. So it's like one fundamental truth is there is almost 8 terabytes of data, on each individual on the planet. The first thing is we need to be very transparent with documenting the algorithms. You see, documenting the design and the parameters, the logics, the model that creates the outcome is very important for whoever wants to go, to study them. Because the more we are transparent with the algorithms that, documenting the algorithms that create the outcomes, people can question, the process. And with more, questioning of the processes comes more better transparency and accountability. The second thing is that we have to use, plain languages, especially for people who want to study. And thank God for what we have today. Plain language explanation is very important. Provide clear, concise explanation of the algorithm you use. Don't try to be a PhD around, whatever you're building. It's because you want people to kind of like see and understand the processes that create, what you have. The third one I really want to highlight is the power of visualization. And I think the media has done really very well with that, but we can always improve. When you go on CNN and the BBCs of this world, you see the analytics behind some of the journalism. You see the visuals, you see, the charts, and then you understand, what goes into it and what comes out of it. Model explanation, I think I've kind of like talked about that. There are other little parts that I think I really want to double down on. When you use people's data, you need to do marketing around it. And that's one of the things that we need to also do, especially for the financial sector, the health sector. These are kind of like all the sectors are kind of like dangerous when it comes to artificial intelligence and data science. But there are some sectors that are very, life-threatening, like our entire life depends on them. Financial services, banking, insurance, health and all that. The investment in marketing, to help us use the outcome of the products that you create with our data. You need to put as much investment into helping us also to understand, what you have done with our data. Another thing is deleting people's data when they say they want them deleted. And not just, downloading the data and putting the data somewhere for future use. When people click on unsubscribe, and we're all guilty of this, right? Unsubscribe them totally from the platform. And not just unsubscribing them, delete them when they say they don't want to be, on your digital footprint. And that's one of the things that we need to do. I think lastly, one of the things I think I want to say is for organizations like, educators, institutions like the government, schools, we need to fund open source projects more. Because open source projects calls for, multiple contribution from different people. And the value of that is not just transparency, but fairness and transparency, accountability, and also much more inclusiveness. When you do open sources, you get everybody to kind of like be a part of the process, contribute their insight, contribute their intelligence, and also contribute their data. I know that I said that was going to be my last point, but I also wanted to say, when I heard one of the speakers talked about, the African continent having a lot of like ethical guidelines, I think this is the best time for us to begin to rally around that. But when we create ethical guidelines, it shouldn't just be the work of the government, right? Because if you have the government only creating that, then that's also biased. We need to get the government, private sector institutions, non-profit organizations, and also have lots of what is this thing called? Town hall meetings around the guidance, the guidelines that we're creating, so that a lot of people can contribute to the guidelines, and you can see that guideline from multiple perspectives. I think when I was using one of the banks, in the UK, I've got about 5 different banks in the UK. One of the things I love about the idea of open banking and also open data is the user friendliness. Sometimes you just want to make these things very complicated so that people see, you want people to read your policies and then you make them 800 pages. No one is going to read them. Yeah. That's you not being transparent and fair enough. If you really want people to know what they are clicking when they say accept, then I like the top 5 things that I think are very important. Make that very user-friendly so that they can see and understand what they're accepting and what they're rejecting. Then say, why you not, converting all the text into video and audio for people to really listen and understand what you're doing? It's because you don't want them to know. We need to be very user-friendly with the kind of products we're creating when it comes to data, because you want people to know what they're doing. I think I'm just going to stop there and yield the mic because I know that the time is not really our friend here.
Thank you very, very much for that. We can overemphasize the need to be transparent, the need for organization, the need for we as in the different sectors we work in to be transparent in our use of data for individuals. I just wanted to point something. You mentioned about the delete, and pointed something to me. What iOS does. A software engineer by profession, and most of the time recently I've been developing more mobile apps. And in developing mobile apps for iOS specifically, if you have an option for creating users accounts, you definitely should have an option for deleting users account before you can be accepted to App Store, right? But as developers, you can go past that stage by just putting the button and not like necessarily deleting the user's data on the back end. It can just take you somewhere and say, okay, you unlock the user out technically and say, okay, the user will delete it. Or, give the impression that it deletes the user's data, but you have it stored somewhere. I think transparency is the responsibility of everybody, like you mentioned, not just the government. For profit organizations, non-profit organizations, private sectors, and everybody has this responsibility of ensuring transparency in the use of data. And I also like how you mentioned the pointing out the most necessary points for users to understand what policies organizations are giving to users to accept before, or to acknowledge before going ahead with the account is very, very important. Nobody here, I don't think anybody here has read all of the users policy that the apps or whatever organization we use gives to us. We just click and accept and just go on with our life, right? So I think videos as well, like you mentioned, are very important in making sure that we as users of platforms are involved in not just clicking and accepting, but know what we are accepting. So thank you for that. I'll be moving on to Akintunde Babatunde. So I want to ask one question. The question is, what role do regulatory bodies and government agencies play in enforcing ethical data practices? So what are some best practices for developing ethical guidelines and policies related to data use in both public and private sectors? So what roles do regulatory bodies and government agencies play in enforcing ethical data policies, and what are some of the best policies for developing ethical guidelines and policies? So yeah, thank you. Over to you.
Thanks. Mic check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right. Thanks. And I think that I'll just get started from where the last speaker stopped. But I it talked about the need to make sure that when we develop ethical guidelines, it shouldn't just be about the government. And that's where I want to identify that the process of developing ethical guidelines and in ensuring that regulatory bodies and government agencies, the role they would play is to ensure that it is not coming from just the government side of things. It has to be developed, in a co-created format. And why do I say this? Our government is responsible generally for ensuring that quality frameworks are developed to protect people. And I know that, this, if you look at the Nigerian recently passed bill, data regulatory bill, you will know that it was from the executive side of things. It was the former president sending a letter to the National Assembly, then and then the level of lawmaking started. So I think that government play a very important role in legislation and regulation. It is one of the ways they contribute to that process. And then they also play a very important role in oversight. Sometimes in our realities, it's not like what we have is a lack of laws or lack of policy framework. Sometimes it's much more about lack of implementation and enforcement. And I would use examples. I'll use examples from the way some institutions just carelessly transfer people's data to other entities. For instance, you are an organization and you deploy a call for application for something. And the next thing is that I applied for this thing. And the next thing that happens to me is that it transfers my data to other entities outside the one I subscribe to. That is unethical and it doesn't make sense. But as an individual, maybe I don't have the wherewithal to hold you to account. But if there are clear policy framework that frown against these unethical practices, then it makes sense. When I was speaking earlier, I used the example of people who of loan apps that have access to people's contacts. And a number of times we have seen the Consumer Protection Council try to clamp down on these loan sharks, but it still keeps happening. And sometimes they are even erroneous. They are even erroneous in the way they go about their the way they go about their people, the people who owe them. Right? It's because why would I have over 1,000 contacts on my phone? And because I'm signing up to get a loan from your app, you need to get. You have access to my contacts. So when I'm not able to pay, then the next thing that happens is that my family and friends see myself and my picture like that. It's cringy. I think that should be one. So when we talk about the role of government, this is one way government can, develop policies that guide, because that on its own is an infringement on people's privacy. Because you cannot in any way have access to my contact. That is one. And if you look at app development, like I mentioned, that even the first intervention that I made earlier would be on how data privacy framework, data regulation framework differs from countries to countries. And I was saying that when we talk about countries that have quality laws that guide people's privacy, there are countries that are developed. And if we are looking at countries in Africa that need to do more on regulating data privacy, then it has to be intentional. Then I would also talk about, I have a number of points. I also want to say that government should ensure, and government, not just government, but also private sector, but government would be the rallying point of that policy. They would ensure that data is collected and used for specified purposes only. Unnecessary data collection, we should minimize unnecessary data retention. And I'm just going to look at this process in Nigeria, and I think government, we have different level of data collection model. a single citizen, there is the hen that I have to register for, there is BVN, there is PVC, there is international passport. And you're like, God, like, can you, for God's sake, harmonize this process? Like, why should I, like, I mean, I find it really, really, really funny, when government institutions are not even optimized, designed to optimize data collection framework, right? We're talking about, I think it was last year when we had flooding, when a lot of states in Nigeria were flooded. And I was talking about the fact that when you are in some countries, say in the United States or in the UK, sometimes you get flood alerts on your phones, right? So if we already have we have NCC, can they work with network providers to send flood alerts to people? Because you already have a database, right? Those are important ways government can ensure that they use these processes to get things work. Then I also wanted to talk about the fact that when government develop quality data privacy guidelines, it also helps to minimize fraud. It also helps to minimize fraud. If people want to, if you are able to develop clear processes that get institutions that are collecting data. I mean, that's why, I when I see Nigerian institutions say they have a call for application and they will say people should print 25 copies of their CVs. And I'm like, wait, why do you do these things? Like, why do you do these things? You can already harmonize this process, develop quality guidelines, and make sure that even private sectors in the country, they are clear about the laws. In Nigeria today, people are just their government. They don't even care, right? They don't even care. That's why someone will just call you. Maybe you subscribe for one thing, and the next thing they call you and saying that, hello, are you aware your subscription will expire tomorrow? I know. Why are you calling me? Why do you have to call me? Like, why? I mean, and sometimes some of them will even send you newsletters or their company updates or adverts without a button to be able to unsubscribe. Like, there are some people who send me, and I'm like, God, where can I unsubscribe? How did I even subscribe for this email notification? So and the last point that I would mention would be the fact that when we do these things, we need to also let people know that there are laws that guide them against their data being used for, some frivolous purposes. So that there should be clear consequence for institutions or entities that infringe on people's data privacy, right? Because if you look at most of the current legislation against ChatGPT today and other, AI, whatever, they are based on privacy. And if you look at also how digital media have, evolved over time, and you get to see when they say, you know what, social media platforms are encroaching to people's private life. That is why I would have a conversation I won't be surprised if after this call, I keep getting ads on data privacy. The algorithm listens, they hear everything we say. So maybe, I don't know, I won't be surprised because I can speak to a friend that I want to eat something, and the next advert I would get on my social media suggestions would be related to what I previously discussed offline, right? And even if you use an iPhone device, there is a way you can always, disable some settings so that your privacy is not. So we need to ensure that products that are developed in African countries, they are also very intentional about guiding people's privacy. There was a time, that if you're using a Windows, a Windows computer, you need to block the webcam with a you need to block it off so that your privacy, all of those things. So we need government to be intentional, and we also need to ensure that government, when they are developing this framework, they need to bring together experts. In the era of having people who develop data privacy laws or policies who have data privacy illiterate, We shouldn't have that. If anyone would work on data privacy issues, then they have to be people who are professionals. They have to be people who are knowledgeable about these issues. They have to be people who are exposed. We can learn. Conversations around data privacy or internet regulatory framework should not be, retaliatory or react, or it should not be against, public protest. Excuse me. We have seen in Nigeria when I think it was in 2021 when Twitter was banned in Nigeria. It was not because government made a very interesting point about, we are blocking Twitter because it's a threat to Nigeria's security. But we all know that it was a regulation against, social movement in the country. So if government have capacity to regulate this process, excuse me, but that process has to be developed in a way that guides against abuse, right? And another point would also be that there is need for us to regularly assess compliance with ethical data guidelines through audit and assessment. When we monitor data practices and we investigate complaints, then we can take corrective actions when necessary. For instance, government should develop a public complaint framework where people can complain. If people feel their data rights have been trampled upon, there should be a system where they can, escalate. And that way we can, together have a country or a society that respects people's digital rights. I'll yield the mic.
Oh, thank you so much for those insights. Really, thank you so much. It was really insightful. So now, since we are running out of time, so now we'll just open the floor for our questions and answers. So please, if you have any question, please just note it down and have your hand up, or you can even send it in the chat so that our panelists can attend to your question. Oh, we have the Miriam. You can go on. Thank you.
Hi. Yes, it's me, Nuria. No worries, it's okay. It's okay. So I had an anecdote while listening to the panelist that spoke right now, and I remember, I think it was in 2017 or 16, I was at an event called the Africa Web Festival, and there were a lot of stands and visiting the stands. And I remember there was that company that was giving a cybersecurity training, and the owner was like, yeah, you should fill out a form and give us feedback. I'm like, yes, why not? I filled the form, and until now I'm regretting it. Every 3 months or 6 months, they're calling me. We have this amazing training. And now I know that it's a scam, but every 6 months. So one time they called me and I said, I will sue you if you do not delete my data. I will sue you. You should tell your boss, give me your boss phone number, or I will be suing you. That's when they actually stopped calling me. It's like having to go to that extent just to have your data pulled out or deleted. And every 6 months, be like, hello, I already said no, I don't want to. Hello, I already said no, I don't want to. So when you're filling those forms at those events, think about whether you'd be happy to receive calls every 3 months or so out of the blue, sometimes at 9 p.m., asking you if you want to get in on a product.
Yeah, thank you, Miriam, for sharing that with us, your personal experience. And what I'm getting from your story is that, just like I'm connecting all the points the panelists talked about. So what I'm hearing is, you know what, we have to stop being ignorant. We have to read out the policies. We have to know our rights. With you were able to stand up for yourself and say, you know what, I'll see you if you keep on calling me like this. So thank you so much for that. So do we have any hand up? Thank you, Miriam. You can lower your hand. So I'm looking at the live session questions, and I think we have a question from Mohammed. And then the question reads, how do we incorporate solutions that are not mainstream due to language barriers, lack of formal education and etc., but are unique to particular problems in rural? I hope you got that. So I'll just repeat it. How do we incorporate solutions that are not mainstream due to language barriers, lack of formal education and etc., but are unique to certain problems in rural? So anyone from the panelists can take that one. Okay, Rhonda, can you please address that one? Rhoda, hello.
Yes, thank you. Let me first read through the question, sorry. How do we incorporate solutions that are not mainstream due to language barrier, lack of formal education, etc., but are unique to the peculiar problem in rural? In my opinion, because incorporate solutions that are mainstream due to language barrier, I think maybe sensitizing the communities, that's what I think, because I'll just give an example of, I am a lawyer, but I do sensitization in hard to reach areas in Uganda. That's an area where people use a language. They most of them have no formal education and most of them don't use English. But what I do, okay, sorry. So, but what I do is that I use an informal type of education. I break down the information. I use innovative ways of making people understand something in an informal way. Because when we also talking about technology is not something that is so advanced in Africa. Most people, technology is new to them. So how do we make them understand in a language, that is not formal? Sometimes you can even use dance and drama. You can use, of course, like dance and drama, but put in some aspects of technology and why it's important. Then also community sensitization, make computers available to people, and the most vulnerable people in the communities, and use a language they understand to teach them. Because sometimes I know that things are easy, but because the language is different or it's difficult to understand, then people might be like, oh, this is too hard. So I think it would be to use an informal type of education to teach, those communities. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I just love the dance and trauma idea. I think it's very interesting. Do we have any more questions or concerns? Do we have anything? Oh, okay. So it looks like we do not have anything. So thank you so much for everyone who participated, our speakers. Miriam, I know you don't like your name as Miriam, but I was at the summit too. Now I wish we could have gotten more time to connect, but we'll connect on social media as well. I feel very grateful for those opportunity, meeting all of you people, all of you guys. It was really an honor. Thank you so much. And Marvelous will take it from here. Thank you.
I think that'll be the end of the section. I'll be handed over to Chukwemeka in case he has anything to say. Before I do that, I think it's nice if we connect on social media. If your name isn't the name on the panel section. I think maybe you can drop off the name. I'm already connecting actually. I think all the panelists or almost all should see my connection request on LinkedIn by now. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. We can continue this conversation out of this space by connecting. It's really good to hear from everyone, and definitely we are going to do better. We are educated now to make a difference in our various communities. So I'll be handing over to Chukwemeka now in case he has any other thing to say.
Okay, thank you so much. Marvelous, thank you so much. Bona, thank you to our esteemed guest speakers today. Hold on, let me turn on my video again. So from our speaker, Eyitayo Mola to Rhoda Nakungu to Babatunde, Akintunde Babatunde to Noya Kume, and yeah, our moderators still all have done amazingly well. And also to our participants. Sorry, the video we streamed during the session was not very clear, but we have sorted out the technical glitches. It's due to network challenges. So we are going to stream it in all the sessions. So we have 5 sessions in total, and this is just the first session. So today we have another section. We will have another section by 3 p.m. Nigerian time, which is GMT +1. And that will be focused on youth entrepreneurship and the future of work, building trust, resilience, and accountability systems. That's the theme for the day. And we also have amazing guest speakers coming. Today, on this session right now, we have had to discuss navigating cybersecurity frontiers, the relevance of data privacy in today's digital age. And I believe that this report's conversations that we have had has enlightened our audience in attendance and also giving us a lot of important insights that we'll be moving forward with. And also just to say clearly that Global Shipper Protocol Hub is hosting this summit in collaboration with amazing Global Shipper Hubs from Nigeria and across Africa. And today we have, as partners on this project, we have the Global Shippers Moreso Hub. Moreso Hub is located in Lesotho. From our conversations, they say it is in the southern part of Africa, and they are currently in a very cold winter, right? That's what Bona mentioned. So over here in Nigeria, it's mixed, it's sunny, and it's just a fair weather. And I believe it's the same thing where everywhere we are today. So thank you again, guys, for tuning in. This has been a pleasure having this session on cybersecurity, and we have over 30 attendees, and we look forward to having much more persons join us today. You will be receiving an invitation link once the next session is about to begin. Once that happens, you have to tune in and then be part of the next session on youth entrepreneurship and the future of work, where we will talk about artificial intelligence, robotics, and business models and systems. Again, I want to appreciate our amazing guest speakers and moderators that have handled this session very, very excellent. And also the team that has put this together. We have amazing people behind the scenes. We'll definitely get to communicate all of that for everyone to be aware of. Thank you so much. So this is 1:44. I think we have really stretched our time, but it's been worth it. It's been worth it. From the next sessions, we'll have more engaging and interactive sessions, breakout sessions as well, so that you can engage. And we look forward to having much more conversations, shape development and use of technology in the digital age. Welcome again to Africa Digital Governance Summit. We can call it a day for now and meet again by 3 p.m. So we'll be online. We won't be going off very soon, so that you can still be around, and if you want to connect with others or have any other things to say, you can drop it while we connect again by 3 p.m. I think that works. Abigail, you want to say something? Abigail is the project coordinator. You want to say something, Abigail?
Thank you so much, Emeka. It's been such an insightful session, and I really want to thank all our panelists for coming on board. And I love that there were personal experiences that was shared while they answered questions. I want to thank Mpona, I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly, And I want to thank Marvelous. Thank you so much. You guys handled the session so well. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys by 3 p.m., which is our final session for today. And then we continue at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So thank you, everybody, for coming on and making this a reality and a success. We really appreciate it. So talk soon.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
So we can say meet by 3 p.m., right? I think that's a better way. Okay, we have music. Let's play music. So thank you again. You can join back again. If you will not be able to stay back, and then continue by 3 p.m. next session. Thank you. This event has been streaming on YouTube via our Port Harcourt Global Shapers YouTube page, and we'll have more details shared in the coming in next section. Everybody can be part of that.